Let's look at Psalm chapter 2, verse 1 through 3. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. I'm going to try to say just a few words about Psalm chapter 2. This chapter feels like it's connected to chapter 1. Psalm 1 said, blessed is the man, and then it gives you these two pathways, one that leads to blessing, who delights in the law of the Lord, planted, and you're like a tree planted by streams of living water. And the end of that pathway is you belong with the Lord, versus the one who is chasing culture and chasing the things that are opposed to God. They're like leaves and trimmings from a bush and chaff that just blows away in the wind. Psalm 1 gives you this picture that's agrarian, and it's kind of the small image. Psalm chapter 2 explodes this idea and puts it on a giant stage where there's nations warring against the Lord and the people that belong to the Lord, where there's this epic struggle. I like the Lord of the Rings, so it feels like Psalm 1 happens in the Shire. Psalm 2 happens across all of Middle Earth. You have the forces of evil and darkness and the forces of Mordor that are lined up against, Aragorn and the forces that are fighting for nobility and light and truth and hope and beauty. So this is the clash, and Psalm chapter 2 verse 1 says, why do the nations rage? That's that idea in a courtroom where everyone is shouting and talking and yelling over each other, and they have to say, order in the court. Like it's just chaos and anger and my way, my way, my way. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? So everyone is scheming and their schemes are empty, right? They're not actually, it's like a political drama right here where everyone is trading favors, but nobody actually has integrity. Nobody can be trusted to do anything more than to just watch out for their own self-interest. And then it says, the kings of the earth set themselves and the rulers take counsel together. And so you get this image of powerful people, whether it's politicians, kings, governors, depending on the way your town is set up. Maybe it's the police department or the board of directors or the way your business is set up. Anyone in power, this is saying the kings of the earth set themselves up and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed. So Psalm chapter 2 paints a picture of good versus evil on an epic scale, and it introduces a character. Chapter 1 says, blessed is the man, and it gives this image of walking with the Lord and delighting in the Lord. And if you do that, you'll be like a tree planted by streams of living water. But chapter 2 introduces the Lord's anointed. And this character is found all throughout the Old Testament, the chosen one, the one who would be the bringer of light and beauty and justice for a people historically oppressed, for the lowly, for the broken, for the trodden upon. The Lord's coming brings justice, destroys the enemy. And so we have a picture. Chapter 2 is like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we're longing for a superhero. Or it's like the Lord of the Rings, and we're longing for the return of the king. Or it's like, Star Wars in a galaxy far, far away, this epic battle taking place across galaxies, and we're longing for the rise of the Jedi. So chapter 2 introduces us to the anointed, and it says the rulers of this earth have taken counsel against him. And in fact, this is the exact language that is used in the New Testament to describe that moment when Jesus was taken captive in the garden. Just a day before his crucifixion, he was thrown in prison, and they have gathered the elders together. And the New Testament uses this exact language. It says, and the rulers took counsel together to decide what to do with Jesus. And the writers of the New Testament are connecting all of what happened to Jesus back to this chapter and saying, look at Psalm 2. We've been singing this song for years saying the Lord's anointed is going to come, and the rulers of the earth will take counsel against the Lord and against his anointed. I'm going to sing it again if you want to practice it. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. Saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. So when they gather together and they shake their fist at the heavens, what is their primary frustration with the Lord? Well, their primary frustration is that the Lord would have the audacity to claim to be the Lord. It's not so much that we shake our fist at what God has done. It's just that he's God at all. There's an internal struggle in every single human heart longing to be God, and acting like any expression of authority put on me is a burden to be broken off. And in this country, our entire history is based on the autonomy of the individual that says, if you claim to have a right to rule me, I have the right to cast you off. And this is sometimes true. Sometimes there's unjust governments and there's unjust tyrants that have taken advantage of the weak. But in terms of the Lord is the gracious King. He is the one who reaches into weakness and lifts up the broken. And his lordship is to be embraced. But here, the nations have taken counsel against the Lord, against his anointed, and they say, let us burst their bonds apart and cast their cords away. This image that any exercise of his lordship over me, I have the right to cast off. Sing it one more time. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. Saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us.